For many decades, India has faced many issues because of the expansionist policies of China. Well, China has border issues with nearly all its neighbors. For many people around the world, India and China are the next two emerging giants. But are these two countries really comparable? Regularly, some of us tend to compare China with India. Yes, they are comparable in terms of population, both are ancient civilizations, and it is believed that historically China had a massive cultural influence from India. But today, should we really be comparing these two giants? In the recent years, there have been times when it was even suggested that India can benefit by adopting the Chinese development model. But for many, it makes no sense. And it is because today, the way these two countries function is completely different. Just because both countries have similar population, comparing them does not make so much sense, especially when we have a vibrant democracy in India, where ordinary citizens have had a chance to take the top ranks in the central and state governments. And on the other hand, we see a communist rule in China, where citizens hardly have any voice or any choice. India gives freedom to its citizens and to its media to publicly criticize or protest against their democratically chosen governments. And in China, freedom does not exist, whether it is individuals' freedom or the freedom of its media. And what is even worse, that most Chinese do not even know how it feels to be free. Moreover, international social media sites are banned in China. However, organ trafficking is somehow still on through some backdoor channels. And that is why there is no way that India has to find its role model in China. Yes, India can buy China-made products or take paid Chinese assistance in those fields in which China has succeeded due to its passion and keenness in reverse engineering. And yes, it is really possible, as in the recent times, these two countries have had a series of many engagements on a political level. China is famous for the art of hiding its ugly sides from the international tourists. They know how to cover up slums, as they famously demonstrated that during the Olympics in Beijing in 2008. On the other hand, we have Indians who desperately need to improve their poor waste management infrastructure. Even though India produces far lesser waste and emissions, still many of its streets look dirtier than the streets of the USA or even China's. Many rivers in India are extremely dirty, and nearly all its initiatives to clean its rivers haven't shown any sensational progress. Openly, both countries deny that they are competing with each other, but it is difficult to believe that the Chinese are very happy about India's rise. China has been heavily investing in the countries that surround India and is trying to increase its influence in South Asian and Southeast Asian zone. On the other hand, India is keen to work closely with countries like Vietnam, Philippines and Japan, just to name a few. India is keen to build its friendship with a Central Asian nation like Kazakhstan, and in Tajikistan, India maintains a base. Not just that, both countries are also competing in Myanmar, where China has invested money in Dawei port, and India has done the same by investing money in Sitwe port. India is famous for under-invoicing, and it has its own challenges, as just a tiny percentage of its citizens pay taxes. On the other hand, China is often accused of deliberately fudging its data upwards. The fact is that India is not comparable to anyone. There is no democracy of such a big size in the world, and India's extraordinary diversity in its cultures, religions, and languages makes it even more unique. But does it mean that India cannot learn anything from China? Perhaps it can. India can learn from China how to boost the self-confidence of its citizens by taking pride in its cultures, in its identity, and also by beautifully preserving them. In the global scenario, India can learn from China how to be more straightforward and a bit more selfish in order to protect its national interest without being over concerned of how the world would react. India can learn from China how an amazing rail infrastructure can be built by the power of money, as money can buy any technology regardless of who the inventor is and where the invention happens. And not only the rail infrastructure, perhaps India can also learn from China that any exotic foreign cuisine can also be made available and popular in a country without getting invaded. India can learn from China how tourism can be increased by building modern architectural marvels instead of thanking its looters, colonizers and invaders for building them, even though they destroyed more than what they built, and what they built was also from the wealth that was looted from India. India can learn from China how to aggressively promote its tourism among the world's citizens, give priority to modernize the infrastructure for its international tourists, and at least clean those streets first which are visited by them. India can also learn from China how a combination of a sophisticated sports infrastructure and the clever use of legal performance-enhancing supplements can get you the Olympic Games glory. India can learn from China how in our times there are many countries for whom the power of money speaks better than the power of love and spirituality, and how money can get you friends, allies and partners in the international politics. India may even learn from China how to speak the truth very loud or just repeat a lie 1,000 times unless it starts to sound like the truth. But does it mean that India should be deceitful and disrespectful? Does it mean that India should also bully the small nations and become an expansionist? Or does it mean that India should take away the freedom of its citizens and its media and also start hiding its slums? No, it doesn't, because India can be tactful, India can be proactive, and India can be pro-India so that it can protect its heritage and its interests. India can also dig its own history and find its own role models and can make its citizens self-inspired. Because India is unique, India is multicultural, India is diverse, and there is no other India. And that is why the world can afford to be a bit more India, but the world cannot afford to be China. And yes, there are still many takers of India's love and spirituality. See you again.